It started as an ordinary day at the beach. Children could be seen playing and splashing around in the shallow waters while the sun beat down on their tiny backs. The gentle sound of waves crashing into the shore, accompanied by the squeals of delight from the children, created a perfect summer ambiance. A group of friends decided to join in on the fun. Among them was a man in his late 20s. As he waded into the water, a small shell scraped against his leg. At first, it was just a tiny scratch, barely even a mark. He didn't even realize it had happened until he pulled his foot out of the water. Looking closer, he could see a small red line on his shin. It wasn't deep, just a superficial cut. He briefly considered the possibility of it getting infected, but it was such a small wound that he dismissed the idea. The day continued on, filled with laughter, games, and good cheer. And by the time the sun began its descent, no one was even thinking about the tiny scratch on his leg. But that night, something was wrong. The man tossed and turned in his bed, unable to sleep. His leg felt heavy and warm. When he looked down, he noticed that the small cut on his shin had become red and swollen. At first, it was just a tiny scratch, barely noticeable. That's what he had thought. But now it was spreading, red streaks emanating from the cut. His skin was turning purple. The infection was spreading, fast. Within hours, he was rushed to the emergency room. Doctors and nurses rushed about, their faces etched with concern. As they wheeled him into surgery, one of the nurses turned to the doctor and whispered, "I've never seen anything like this before. It's like the flesh is rotting." The doctor could only shake his head in response. The diagnosis: necrotizing fasciitis, flesh-eating bacteria. The wound on his leg was more than just a small cut. It was a gateway for the bacteria to enter his body, and it was spreading rapidly. There was only one option: cut away the infected tissue and pray that it hadn't spread too far. The surgery was long and grim. The surgeons worked in the dark, the only light coming from the harsh fluorescent lamp above, illuminating the sterile field. The air was thick with the smell of antiseptic and the sound of scraping metal tools. When they finally emerged from the operating room, their faces were grim. The flesh-eating bacteria had been aggressive, but they had managed to remove all the infected tissue. He woke up in a hospital bed. One leg was missing, replaced by a white bandage. He stared blankly ahead, the full weight of what had happened dawning on him. He had survived, but at a terrible cost. As the doctors wheeled him out of the hospital, the lead surgeon turned to the gathered reporters. "This is a rare but serious condition," he said, his voice grave. "But it's important to remember that flesh-eating bacteria is real. It can enter the body through small cuts and act fast." He paused, his eyes fixed on the ground. "Always clean your wounds, and don't ignore the signs." The man in the wheelchair stared straight ahead, his face pale, his eyes filled with a terrible knowledge. He knew the truth. Flesh-eating bacteria is real.